Hi there, my name is Gloria, and to whoever may be watching this video, thank you for watching. Here we are. A quarter ago, we would not think that we would have experienced this crazy situation that we did. But even though the pandemic has really flipped our lives upside down, here we are. Here I am presenting my project in front of an audience maybe. And I'm just excited to share what it is that I have been working on this past quarter. When I talked about this project with Dr. Hill, she asked me, when we were brainstorming about what it is that I can do research on, that I can write a project on, she asked me what it is that I was passionate about, right? And immediately I knew, like, oh yeah, I know what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about working with children and being able to work with parents, with their parents as well. And I'm passionate about education. So I decided to merge all of these three very meaningful parts of my life that have shaped me and that have shaped clearly like the profession that I have chosen, right? And so I decided to focus my project on the effects that parental education has on children. And again, a year ago, the project had a very, very different route, but unfortunately, I was not able to take that route because we don't have access to schools and we don't have access to teachers, at least face-to-face we don't, or children or their families, so I wasn't able to conduct that research. However, I still kept the emphasis of parental education because it is something that means so much to me. And research has just proven that parental education just is so helpful to a child's education, right? To a child's academic journey. It shows a higher level of parental education has been proven to show that children just simply experience a better time in school. They just have a better attitude towards school. And many of these students who, again, have parents that are just actively involved in their education, they also go on to perform better in school. And they also tend to just reach a higher level of education in comparison to those students whose parents are not actively involved. So I decided to focus my study on and focus my research on this project on a very specific group of individuals that oftentimes aren't involved in school. And these are minority families who are of low income, who don't speak English, and who are undocumented. And the reason why I chose this family is because that's what my family looked like growing up. I did not have the luxury, right, of knowing just English right out of the womb, and my parents didn't either. So growing up, it was really difficult for my parents to be involved in school because they just simply didn't know how to be involved. And that's the thing about that's a huge underlying theme that I go across in my research in this project, that it's not that parents don't want to be involved, it's that parents want to be involved, but they just don't know how to be, or they're just insecure about something about their own person that limits them to how involved they are in their child's education. So again, this group of individuals, often that again is part of my family because I grew up in a family like that. They're not as actively involved as our American families who do speak English and who do have a higher income, and just because the language barriers play such a huge role in how actively they are involved. I remember growing up that my parents would really just try to avoid all of these school events in one way or another, like open houses and back to school events, right? Like all of that, they did their best to just really avoid all of that. So they would come up with the most creative excuses, even though, like, I knew in the bottom of my heart that why was that they didn't want to go, right? I knew that they were really tired because they worked multiple jobs. I knew that they were insecure at the fact that they wouldn't even be able to talk with the teachers and with the families around them because they, again, that language barrier, they didn't know how to speak English, and that was a really big insecurity for them. And they just didn't have the time. They were tired. They were tired from working all day. And so they just, again, they weren't able to be a part of these really cool school events that were hosted by really great teachers and that I really try to push for them to go to with me because, again, of these different situations. And I acknowledge the fact that as a future teacher, I myself will have students who are in the very same boat that I was in, whose parents, again, it's not that they don't want to be involved in their education, it's just that they just don't know how to be involved. And a lot of times they don't see it being really helpful to them either way, so they're just not going to invest in that. So basically, the idea for this project that I created came from even when I was really young. So when I was really young, and again, my parents were not very involved in my school. They would not really help me with my homework because they didn't really go to school, you know, back in Mexico, and they just didn't know how to help me with my homework. So I had to take on that role of being my own teacher and figuring things out on my own, and that made me very independent, right? And that was good, but I recognize that a lot of students that I will have are just not going to be able to develop that within themselves without guidance. So they're going to need some guidance, and I aim to be there to give that to them. But essentially, one of the ideas that I had growing up that influenced this project greatly was that I would be at school and I would think about like how cool it was that all the things that I was learning about. I thought it was so cool. I was in love with like learning about language, and I was in love learning about science and history, that I remember actively trying to be so in tune with what the teacher was saying so that I could remember the information and that I could bring it back and share it with my parents. There wasn't really much to talk about with my parents except like my day, so any other thing that we can talk about at the dinner table was helpful. And so I tried to remember the conversations that we had in class, and I tried to remember the things that I learned so that I could be able to bring it back to my parents. And then this idea came across my head, and I was like, well, what if like what I learn at school I teach my parents, and then we can both be learning together, and then we can both be growing and learning literally at the very same time. So that is the exact same idea that shaped this project. And I came up with a program called Aprendiendo Juntos. And for anybody watching this video who doesn't know what that means, it means learning together. And that's exactly what it is. So the basically, right, of the program is kind of like a pyramid, right? You have the parent, and then you have the teacher, and then you have the child. And all three of these individuals work collectively to help each other out and to build this community that is meant to help each other reach academic excellence. And ultimately, it's really created to benefit the child above anybody else, above the teacher and above the parent, right? But the motto of the program is essentially, I learn, and I teach, and you teach, and we learn together, right? So again, it's merging these three different worlds of the teacher and the parent and the child, and having them work collectively to teach each other and to learn together. So this is essentially what it looks like, right? The child will spend a day trying to actively remember the things that they are learning in school so that they can be able to teach that to their parents when they get back home. And what we're doing with a program like this is that we're expanding the classroom so that the child is not just learning under a beautiful curriculum at school. They're also going to be learning at home by bringing that curriculum with them and teaching their parents about it. And so what we're doing here is that we're using a reciprocal teaching learning method. And basically what this looks like is, again, you learn by teaching other people. And different studies and different research has just shown multiple times how effective it is for our own learning to be able to teach what we know to other individuals. So that's essentially what this program is about. That the children are learning these really cool things in school that the teacher is telling them to remember. So it's not just any old lesson that they have to remember and bring back to their parents. It is an actual like activity, or it's an actual lesson that they have to remember and bring it back home. And that's what reciprocal learning is. Basically, you're learning together. The child teaches the parent, and then the parent goes through the reciprocal teaching process of asking questions and clarifying and summarizing what it is that they learn. And then the parent teaches that back to the child, right? And what we end up having is basically like this dual learning approach where the child and the parent are both learning together. And the goal of this program is basically to be able to equip parents with the necessary skills and the tools that they need to be actively involved in their child's education. Like I said probably 100 times already, it's not that parents don't want to be involved in their child's education, it's just that they don't know how to be. And so through this program is we're modeling an approach that works, right, by teaching each other, and we're bringing that approach home, and we're hoping that this approach is useful, and we're hoping that this approach really helps children and parents learn together and grow together and reach that academic excellence. So the goal, again, is for families to be able to grow together. One of the things that I believe in is that if children can see that their parents are making an effort in trying to be involved in their schooling, if the child sees that their parent is trying to learn another language and they're trying to help them with their homework and they're trying to work on themselves, then the child will value those very same things, and they will want to basically mimic what it is that the parent is doing. So if education is not meaningful for the parent, then education is not going to be meaningful for the child either. So with this approach is we're getting the parents to be involved in the child's learning, and by doing so we are convincing the child that what they're doing at school is worthwhile, and that one day they can go to college and that's going to be worthwhile again. This program is, of course, a rough sketch, and the reason why it's a rough sketch is because to actually edit it and to actually implement it, I would need to have my own classroom, and I am beyond excited to be able to use a program like this in a classroom of my own one day. I realize how a program like this can thrive in like an ESL or an ELL classroom, where the majority of my students will remind me of myself when I was a little girl, and I will be able to be that teacher and create this program that I wish that I had growing up, and I hope that through this program I'm able to reach out to parents, and I'm able to teach them how to be actively involved in their child's schooling. And by doing so, we're increasing the rates of children being motivated to be in school, and of children aiming to go to reach higher education. So again, this is aprendiendo juntos, this is growing together, and that is essentially the project that I have crafted. It is my baby, and I can't wait to receive feedback, and I can't wait to practice this, and I really hope that after being given this great opportunity at PUC to create something this fun and this unique, I really do hope to not give up. I don't want to give up on this idea. I want to be able to one day actually implement it and actually create like an actual program that can benefit different school districts, and that different teachers can incorporate into their ESL and their ELL classrooms, again, to help these families out. So that is basically my project, and I am done now, I guess. So if you guys have any questions, if you guys have any comments, I am open to them wholeheartedly. So thank you for listening, you guys, and have a wonderful rest of your day or night.